I put on these conferences before myself, and I'd like to just first of all begin by thanking Mandy and her people for all the work they've done, because I happen to know what goes on behind the scenes. It's not easy. And I guess I would start off with a statement from my favorite philosopher, Andy Griffith. When he was asked what was football, he said, "You know, I done studied and think I figured it out. And the object is take that there pumpkin, run from one end of the cow pasture to the other, without already getting knocked down or stepping in something." And that's sort of my job today. And in terms of full disclosure, my primary concern, what I wrote most of my books on, have been on Russia. Russia's nice because, first of all, the elections are much more predictable, and they take less work to work on. Next week, I have to give a presentation on reforming the Russian military, so if I act a little bit confused at times, I probably am. In terms of full disclosure, I'd also say, since I've talked about the military, I combined 20 years in the Foreign Service with 33 years in the Navy, starting from an E1 and going to an 06. My older son went to the Naval Academy, where he played football and beat Army, and graduated. And my daughter was an Army JAG, and my son-in-law is right now in Kandahar in southern Afghanistan, battling the Taliban. Let me go ahead and a good part of what I'm going to say, in certain senses, goes along with what Professor Burke said. I think it's important from the standpoint that I come from, which is trying to understand leadership style, to understand that George Bush is the first CEO. And CEO is important because, in a certain sense, what Bush did is he put a model in that put him as the president, Cheney as the CEO, and the department heads in charge of their department heads. There's a problem with that because it basically says that you're sort of stuck with what you've got. If the person you delegate the authority to is good, you're fine. If they're not, you've got a trouble. And that means you're totally dependent on those individuals. If you have a SecDef who will work well, you're fine. If you don't, you're in trouble. This also may help explain the unusual role Cheney's played in this administration. I'm still not certain I can handle it all in great detail. I think I pretty well figured out what Scooter Libby was doing and some of the different things with the speech that the Secretary gave, the UN, other things. But one of the big problems that you have when you take a person from as a CEO and put him in the government is it's easy to determine success if you're a CEO. It's the bottom line. You got money, you got numbers. You're either making a profit, you're not making a profit. When you take that mentality and put it into something like the Pentagon, and I served 2 tours in the Pentagon as an FSO. I did 2 years on the staff of the Chief of Naval Operations. I did 2 years in Office of the Secretary of Defense, as well as 2 years in the House Armed Services Committee. I think I know how the process sort of works. The Pentagon does not work on the basis of something simple like body counts or the basis of something like money returned on expenditures. It works on a base of flexibility, on morale, on how well you can get things to do things. You can walk in, as Rumsfeld did in the Cereal Corporation, and you can fire a third of the people the first day you're there. Can't do that in the Pentagon. Furthermore, in the Pentagon, there's an old saying by a famous American political scientist, Richard Neustadt, who said that the power of the presidency is the power of persuasion. I would add that the power of the Secretary of Defense is the power of persuasion. Generals don't get where they are, and animals get where they are by being stupid. And it's also something I think that is important to understand, having served and been around in some rather sensitive and high-level positions at this time. I have generally found out that when it comes to using military action, the military is the last one to want to go to war. Certainly in this administration, I think I have documented, I can name places and individuals, the military did not want to go to Iraq. The military didn't want no part of it. And in fact, the military fought it all the way down the line. When you put a person, and where the weakness came with George W. Bush, is he relied upon Rumsfeld almost totally. Harry Sheldon, who was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs when Rumsfeld took over, Rumsfeld approached him and he said, "You know, I want you to, anything you send to the president, I want you to go through me." Harry Sheldon looked at him and said, "Mr. Secretary, there's a problem. It's called the 1986 Goldwater-Nichols. According to that, I'm the president's senior military advisor. I don't go through you, sir. I go directly to the president." He waited, Rumsfeld waited, and a very nice, decent human being who I have personal respect for as a person, but not much as a military officer, Dick Myers, who's a graduate of K-State. He chose Dick Myers, and Dick Myers did nothing, never went directly to the president over Rumsfeld's head. Everything went through Rumsfeld. And in fact, if you go through all of the arguments on transformation, all of the arguments on Iraq, what you find out is it's Rumsfeld who's the only person who interfaces between the president and the military. The military is forced to go through him. In fact, it got so bad that Myers tried to pick some of his deputies, and Rumsfeld said, no, I don't like him. He got to the point where he was passing on promotions to 2 stars, 3 stars, and 4 stars. They had the files had to go past Rumsfeld because Rumsfeld wanted to make certain that they were working on the basis of what he wanted.